Today on Traveller's Guide IELTS we are looking at reading, and we're looking at the IELTS Academic Book 19 Reading Test 4. In this video I'm going to go over the questions, look at the answers and explain why those are the correct answers. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video, leave a comment with your opinions and subscribe to Traveller's Guide IELTS YouTube channel for more videos like this one. So before we get into the test, just to mention that the IELTS academic reading test consists of 3 passages, a total of 40 questions, and you get 1 hour in total to answer all of those questions. Then the number of correct answers you get directly relates to a band score. So for example, if you get 31 questions correct out of 40, that will be a band score 7. Right, so let's start with reading section 1, the first passage, and it says you should spend about 20 minutes on questions 1 to 13, which are based on reading passage 1. So as I said, you get 1 hour in total. It suggests you spend 20 minutes on each passage, but that's just a suggestion. You can take less or more if you want, as long as the total is an hour. Now, the title of the first reading passage is The Impact of Climate Change on Butterflies in Britain. So an environmental topic, which is always very popular in IELTS. Hopefully you should be able to understand all of the words in the title. Sometimes there's a name or something in there that you won't recognize, but this time fairly straightforward. The first set of questions, numbers 1 to 6, are true, false, not given questions. So there will be a statement, and you have to decide if that statement is true, if it agrees with the information in the passage, false if it says the opposite of what is in the passage, or not given if we cannot tell if it's true or false because there's no information about that. Okay, now in these reading passages, they should the statements should go in order throughout the passage, and there should always be at least one of each option. So at least one of them will be true, at least one false, and at least one not given. Let's have a look then at the first statement. 40 years ago, there were fewer butterflies in Britain than at present. So with these statements, I'm going to identify some keywords and then use those to find the correct passage. So I'm going to look for 40 years ago. I think that's going to be important. Maybe butterflies in Britain, but as the title is about butterflies in Britain, they're likely to appear throughout the entire passage. But in this paragraph, I've found the phrase the past 40 years, so that shows I'm in the right place for 40 years ago. Let's then, now if you want to pause the video now and try and find the answer yourself by reading this passage, you can do, so feel free to pause and then continue when you're ready. Otherwise, we'll go into the explanation. So I'm looking for some synonyms here, words that mean the same, or antonyms, phrases that mean the opposite. But we have the word fewer in the statement, and we have the word declined in the passage. So these are kind of suggesting a similar thing, numbers going down. But 40 years ago, there were fewer than at present. This actually is the opposite of what the statement says. So we're saying that numbers have declined in the past 40 years, which means that in the past there were more. So while fewer and declined seem to be suggesting the same thing, it's the context that shows they're actually opposite. So if it said now there are fewer butterflies in Britain than there were 40 years ago, that would be true, but it's switched around, so the answer is false. On to number 2. Caterpillars are eaten by a number of different predators. Okay, let's have a look then for something about caterpillars. They do appear in a few different sections, but let's take a look at this part. So there's caterpillars. Are eaten by. Now, another way of saying that they're eaten by is saying that they are prey for things. So predators will prey on species that they eat. And predators, they're highlighted in blue. We've got some examples here: birds, bats, and other small mammals. So caterpillars are prey for birds, bats, and animals. Caterpillars are eaten by a number of different predators. That is saying the same thing, so we'll go with true. Number 2 is true. On to number 3. Phenology is a term used to describe a creature's ability to alter the location of a life cycle event. Now, when you see a word like phenology, you probably won't know this word, and it's presented in commas to show that it's introducing a new term. So actually most native speakers wouldn't know this word either. It's a scientific term. Is it used to describe a creature's ability to alter the location of a life cycle event? Well, we'll find that word phenology in the passage, and it appears in this paragraph. So let's have a look at the explanation. So in yellow, alter could be changing, and then life cycle event. So a life cycle event is just something that happens at a stage in a creature's life. We have the phrase life cycle events and some examples: being active and reproducing. And there's the word phenology. So here's the key though. The question talks about the location, which means the place, whereas the passage is talking about the time of year. So actually phenology is a term used to describe a creature's ability to alter the time of year of the life cycle event, not the location. So while at first it looked like it was going to be true, in the end it's actually false. So this location is key. Number 4. Some species of butterfly have a reduced lifespan due to spring temperature increases. Okay, so if we look at this part, we're talking about temperatures, springs, so spring temperature increase by roughly 0.5 degrees Celsius. That part shows us we're in the right place. Some species, there's species, reduced lifespan. Well, it talks about the temperature increase might bring things forward. So advanced, bring forward 3 days in a week. There's some time examples. But this isn't about their lifespan. This is about when they start things. Lifespan means how long something lives for in total. So the butterflies may appear earlier in the year, but that doesn't mean that they live for a shorter time or they live for a longer time. This one is not given. So there's no actual statistics on the lifespan of the butterfly. Number 5. There's a clear reason for the adaptations that butterflies are making to climate change. Well, let's look at this part here. So talking about adaptations, talking about climate change, but this key here, this phrase, the answer is still unknown. That suggests that reasons are not clear. Let's just look at a little bit closer to see if this is in fact correct. So for climate change in orange, we've got climate change and changes. Reasons, is this a sign? And then there's an or. So the two questions before that statement are sort of trying to find reasons. And adaptations, we've got example, adjusting or dragging along unwillingly. So again, it's showing that reasons are not clear. The answer is false. Right. You might think this might be a not given because the reasons are not given, but it's not asking for the reasons. It's just saying that there is a clear reason. And no, there is not a clear reason. It's unknown. So false. Number 6. The data used in the study was taken from the work of amateur butterfly watchers. So here we see this section about data. We know we're in the right place there. We can also notice that amateur. So you might not know the word amateur, but that means someone who does something, it's not their job. So they don't get paid for this. It could be a hobby, or it could be something they do in their spare time. Okay, and watchers is sort of like looking at something, so observing. So amateur could be enthusiasts, something they do in their free time, watching, observing. This one then is true. So the researchers doing the study use the data from amateurs. On to the next part, questions 7 to 13. There are some notes with some spaces. We need to choose one word only from the passage for each answer and then write them in. So butterflies in the UK is the title of the summary. We need to fill in the blanks. But very important that we use one word only. If you use 2 words, that cannot be correct and you won't get the point. Even if you use the one right word plus another one, you'll get no points. You can only use one word. Right, starting with the small blue. So this is a kind of butterfly, the small blue. It lives in large what? And it first appears at the start of what? Then it completes more than one reproductive cycle per year. So there is one paragraph about the small blue. That's the best way to find it. Look for the name small blue. And looking at number 7, it lives in large what? There's an example here of up to 100 strong. That means there are 100 individuals together. So this is a large what? Colony. There. So a large colony lives in large colonies. Group of individuals together. Okay, and then on to number 8. It mentions spring, summer and autumn. So the 3 different seasons that are mentioned, there's going to be one of them. So let's have a look here. The first appears at the start of. Okay, so at the start of could be the same as early in. And first, well, spring, of these options, spring comes first in the year. So spring must be the correct answer for number 8. Next, 9 and 10, these are about the high brown fritillary, another type of butterfly. It has one reproductive cycle, it's considered to be more something than other species, and its caterpillars occupy a limited range of what? That's 9 and 10. And we can find this paragraph, including the high brown fritillary. Again, pause it now if you want to find the answers yourself, but let's have a look. So one reproductive cycle while we're here is single generation. But actually the answers to 9 and 10 come before this. So it's considered more something than other species. It does say the word beautiful. So this would fit because we're definitely looking for some sort of adjective to make the sentence. Is it more beautiful than other species though? It says it's beautiful, but it doesn't compare that to others. So it's beautiful, but that's a red herring. We'll move on from that. Instead, more than could be most, and considered, often described as. So in fact, the word endangered is the correct answer. Okay, so beautiful is not being compared to anything, but endangered is because it says most. So if it's most endangered, it's more endangered than other species. And on to 10, the caterpillars. And this is actually even before that one, but we've got caterpillars. there in orange. A limited range of could be very specific. And then habitat types would fit in. So it could be its caterpillars occupy a limited range of habitat types, except we can only use one word. So we'll go with habitat. It wouldn't make sense to just say types. Habitat works on its own. The answer key says that habitats is allowed, even though in the passage it's just a singular, but habitats would make sense grammatically, so they will allow it with the S as well. But I would just have gone with habitat singular. Then, for question 11, we have one statement about the silver-studded blue. It's already able to reproduce twice in a year in warm areas of what? This part mentions the silver-studded blue. And let's look at some of this. Reproduce twice a year, add a second generation. And warm, we've got the word warm there. But whereabouts is this? So areas of where? Here we have continental Europe. That means the mainland of Europe. That's an example of an area. But again, we can only use one word. Continental is an adjective. Let's stick with the actual place name, Europe. And that is the correct answer for number 11. Is already able to reproduce twice a year in warm areas of Europe. And finally, for this section, we have the White Admiral. Number 12 is found in what areas of England? And both climate change and the something of the caterpillar are possible reasons for decline. And this paragraph is about the White Admiral, so we know that the answers should be in here. Areas of England. Well, we can see the word England there, and the sentence, the White Admiral of southern England, a much sought after butterfly. So what areas? We have a direction there, southern, or part of the country. So that's going to be the right answer. Southern areas of England, that means it's in the south. And on to the next part. So we've got caterpillar, find him again. And then climate change is there in green in both of those. Both could be related to this also. So both climate change and the something of caterpillar. So we're looking for two reasons for decline. And we've got decline there as well. So also likely due to climate change. That's one of them. So what's the other reason? It's going to be somewhere between caterpillar and climate change. It's this word here, diet, which means the type of things that they eat. So they only eat honeysuckle, and it has gone, that has reduced. Okay. So 12 is southern, 13 is diet. And that's the end of section 1. We'll move on to section 2. And this passage, again, it says 20 minutes. This is questions 14 to 26. And the topic is deep sea mining. Mining is where you are digging for resources. And it has this subheading, bacteria from the ocean floor can beat superbugs and cancer, but habitats are at risk from the hunger for marine minerals. Okay, so this is going to be another scientific passage based in the sea. Now this passage has 6 paragraphs, A to F. What we have to do for these questions is choose the correct paragraph, A, B, C, D, E, or F, that goes with the right statement. So number 14. Which paragraph has information that contains reference to the rapidly increasing need for one raw material in the transport industry? Okay, so I'm going to look for something with some key phrases here. Rapidly increasing need, one raw material, and transport industry. Let's see if we can find examples of those in this paragraph. Well, the transport industry, it talks about electric car batteries. Cars form of transport. Rapidly increasing need. We've got demand is soaring there, so need is demand, increasing, soaring. And then in pink, one raw material, the example there is cobalt. Cobalt is a raw material that's needed for electric car batteries. So the answer to number 14 is C. That information is in paragraph C. 15. Which paragraph has a rough estimate of the area of the Earth covered by the oceans? So we're going to look out for something about Earth and oceans and a rough estimate, so we need a kind of figure here. Well, in paragraph F, it talks about 70% of the planet. So Earth can be called the planet. We've got oceans there, and covered by could be occupy. A rough estimate is around, and then the area 70%. So here we can see that F is the correct answer for number 15. 16. We want the paragraph that shows how a particular underwater habitat where minerals and organisms coexist is formed. So we're looking for examples of minerals and organisms living together, coexisting, and how that environment came about. Well, in paragraph E, I found mineral rich goes with minerals, organisms could be animals, and formed, created. And this habitat is on the deep seabed with hydrothermal vents. So all of that together points towards paragraph E as the correct answer for question 16. 17. Which paragraph has reference to the fact that the countries of the world have yet to agree on rules for the exploration of the seabed? So keywords here, things like countries of the world and rules and agree. Let's see. In paragraph D, I've found yet to agree, not yet drafted, and those rules could be the regulatory framework. Rules and regulations are the same. Exploration of the seabed, green deep sea mining, although that appears in many different places, and countries of the world, global. So all of this together, answer is D for 17. Now for questions 18 to 23, we need to look at the following statements and a list of people who said what. So let's just first of all notice this part. You may use any letter more than once. So there are 5 different options, and we've got 18 to 23, so lots of questions. You can use the same one more than once. A is Professor Matt Upton, B is Julie Hunter, Julian Aguon and Pradeep Singh, C Dr. John Copley, D Michael Johnston, and E is Verena Tunnicliffe. So the easiest way might be to look for them in the passage and find out what they said. So kind of work backwards and then match it with each statement, perhaps. I'm going to go through them in order of question though. So, who said a move away from the exploration of heavily mined resources on land is a good idea? So in paragraph F, I have found the word land there. Okay, it is a good idea, it makes sense, and heavily mined reserves could be fast depleting resources. Then a move away, doing something instead of. So here we can match up the statement, but who said it? So there we have Mike Johnston said this, and that is D. So the answer you should write down is D. On to 19. Who talked about the negative effects of undersea exploration on local areas and their inhabitants are being ignored. So I'm going to look for something about local areas and inhabitants. Well, in paragraph D, I found inhabitants could be indigenous peoples. Being ignored is a disregard. And then negative effects are the environmental and social impacts. So I found the right place. Again, I need to work out who said it. Well, here we have Julie Hunter, Julian Aghion, and Pradeep Singh. This could be a little bit confusing because this is in paragraph D, but make sure you don't write D. It should be B, because of the options, Julie Hunter, Julian Aghion, and Pradeep Singh is option B. So even though it's in paragraph D, that's not the answer we're looking for. B. On to number 20. There are more worthwhile things to extract from the sea than minerals. Well, over in section B, we've found, instead of more worthwhile, a better way of exploiting the economic potential of the deep sea. So if something's more worthwhile, then it's better. Things to extract, we've got medicines and drugs. These are two examples. This was Upton who said this. I think this one's a little bit difficult, but yeah, related to the paragraph before as well, where he was first introduced, but this would be Professor Matt Upton. So A is the correct answer for number 20. 21. No other form of human exploration will have such a destructive impact on marine life as deep sea mining. Who said this? Well, towards the end of the passage, I found this section, which says, there's a bit about humans there, but no other form, so the greatest. And a destructive impact, words like assault and inflicted suggest the same as destructive. Marine life, we've got deep sea ecosystems. So this part here about the mining is going to be the worst thing that humans have ever done. Say the same in other words, but who said this? It was Verena Tunnicliffe, which is option E. So 21E. 22. More is knowing about outer space than about what lies beneath the oceans. For this one, I would go to paragraph D. And here we can find some, we might have noticed these before, but we've got references to outer space, the Moon, Mars, and Venus. Okay. So more is known. Yep, we've got studied in much greater detail. And then it also says the opposite. So knowledge of the deep seabed remains extremely limited. So we know that we're in the right place. Who said this though? Again, this was Hunter, Aghion, and Singh. So this is going to be option B again. Remember, it said that we could use each letter more than once. And yes, we've had to use letter B again. That's that one there. I think this one should be quite easy just because of the outer space reference. Moon, Mars, and Venus. I think that's quite a big flag that should be easily spottable, perhaps. And number 23, there is one marine life habitat where experts agree mining should not take place. Okay, so we need the experts to agree something about this. Okay, so I've gone with this section, and it says we need the experts are clear. So scientists, or a form of experts, agree that they are clear about this. So they're all saying the same thing, they're agreeing. Mining should not take place. We don't want mining on them. Okay, so the example, the one habitat was deep sea vents. Okay, so who is it that's saying this? This is Dr. John Copley. They're in the middle of this whole section. So the answer for number 23 will be C. And then the last part of section 2, questions 24 to 26. We have a summary and we need to fill in the missing words. Just like before, it is one word only from the passage. Okay. Mining corporations believe that the mineral resources lying under the sea may be superior to those found in the earth. They also say that these can be removed without producing much what? Number 24. Now, without even seeing the passage, you might think it was something like without producing much pollution, perhaps. Let's have a look, though, into the passage. And in paragraph C, I found this part. Mining corporations believe, we've got mining corporations argue. Right, but the mining corporations point to the right part. Then, superior, yep, that's there as well. In the earth, land mining. So on earth or in the earth is the land. It's earth with a small e as well, so it's not the name of the planet, it's talking about the landmass area. And then the blue section, without producing much, what? And that matches up with the phrase with little, if any, waste. So actually the word we're looking for is waste. Number 24, waste. Then 25 and 26. So first of all, the extraction is often done by adapting the what that has already been used to work on land. Right. So a little bit further down the same passage, we've got method of excavation, same as method of extraction, and seawater slurry. So these parts are further on in the question. But adapting, converting, previously used, already been used. And work on land, terrestrial mining. So again, there's more ways of saying the same things that we've already seen. But if we highlight these words, what must go in section 25? It'll be this word here, machinery. Machinery, another word for machines, tools. There we go, 25 is machinery. And if we carry on with 26, a little bit further on in the passage, however, concerned groups strongly believe that what is necessary due to the possible number of unidentified consequences. So I started by looking at unidentified consequences could be the same as unknown ramifications. Again, some very high level vocabulary here. Possible number of potentially massive, potentially large number. But what should the missing word be in 26? Well, we then go back a bit and see concerned groups, environmental and legal groups. There are some examples of those. And they strongly believe something, so they've urged it. So the word we are looking for to fill the gap is caution. Caution is necessary. They need to be careful. 25, machinery. 26, caution. Okay, let's move on to the final passage, reading passage 3. Again, it says 20 minutes, but at this point it will be however long you have left. 27 to 40, and the passage is called The Unselfish Gene, which is another scientific article, and it says underneath, a psychologist gives his view on how humans became self-centered. So this is an opinion article, and the author is a psychologist. For the first set of questions, 27 to 30, in passage 3, they are multiple choice. So we need to choose A, B, C, or D. Which one is correct? Let's start with number 27. So what is the writer doing in the first passage? Okay, now the good thing about this question is that it tells us where to find the answer. It's in the first paragraph, so let's get that on the screen. Again, if you want to pause here and look at it yourself, feel free. But in the first paragraph, what is the writer doing? So I'm going to go through each one and see if they're there. Option A, setting out two opposing views about human nature. Well, two opposing views. We've got we're apparently ruthless. If we are kind, if we are good. At first glance, this might seem like opposing because we've got ruthless is the opposite of kind and good. but actually he's just using those to further his previously stated view. So actually that is just one view, but looking at it from different sides, or explaining it using different terms. But no, there's no opposing views there. A is gone. B, justify his opinion about the tendency to be greedy. So instead of greedy, we could say selfish or ruthless. But is he justifying his opinion here? Is he explaining why he thinks this? Not at this stage. He may go on to do that later in the passage. But remember, we're only looking at the first paragraph for this question, so we can rule out option B as well. Looking at C, though, describing a commonly held belief about people's behaviour. General assumption is the same as commonly held belief. And then behaviour, we've got some examples. Competing, accumulating power and possessions, being kind, being good. That sounds like that could be the correct one. Let's just check D to make sure. Explaining why he thinks that humans act in a selfish manner. Well, we did talk about selfish, but he's not explaining why he thinks this. In fact, he's presenting a different person's view or a general view that people have. So this isn't really about his opinion at all at this stage, so we can rule out D. So yes, we were correct to choose C. There we go, for the previous reasons I had mentioned. 27C. On to 28. What point is made about Richard Dawkins' book, The Selfish Gene? So we can find the section in the passage which mentions the selfish gene and mentions Richard Dawkins. Again, these names with capital letters are quite easy to spot within the text. So we can zoom in on this one paragraph and look at it step by step. Option A. Its appeal lay in the radical nature of its ideas. So appeals showing same as becoming popular, and ideas matches with ethos. But radical nature, well, actually it fitted in so well with ideas. So that's the opposite of radical. So we can rule out option A. Radical means it's challenging the views and it's completely different and new and unusual. But no, this one fitted in well. B, its success was due to scientific support it offered. So evolutionary psychology is a branch of science. Success was due to, so it became popular because. And then we've got some societies there, which is important. So it wasn't actually offering scientific support, it was more social. Okay. Option C. It presented a view that was in line with the attitudes of the time. And of the time, late 20th century, attitudes, competitive and individualistic ethos, and in line with, it fitted so well with. Well, that does seem to match. Again, let's just check D to see if we're correct. It took an innovative approach. Innovative, like radical, means it's new, something that no one has tried before. But in fact, the passage says it was like many others. So the approach was not innovative. It was the same as other people had done before. So we can rule out D. And again, the correct answer for this one is C. Okay, so it matches up with that. C. Right, 29. What does the writer suggest about the prehistoric era in the fourth paragraph? Again, it tells us where to go. So let's get the fourth paragraph up on the screen and go through the options to see what is correct. I'm going to start with option C. Most estimates about population size are likely to be inaccurate. So it mentions population size in Europe and also in the whole world. But what about inaccurate? There's no mention of whether he thinks that this is true or not. So inaccurate would suggest that he disagreed with these numbers. There's none of that. So let's rule out option C. A, societies being more complex, and D, humans moving across the continents. I can't find any information about those. No, there's nothing there to suggest that, so we'll rule both of those out, which leaves us with B. Let's just check this. So supplies of natural resources. We've got the word resources in there, but we also have wild animals and wild plants, which are a form of resource that in the past that the humans would have been looking for. And were they plentiful? It says they were unlikely to have had to compete against each other, which means that there were enough for everyone, which means they were relatively plentiful. So B is in fact the correct answer. 29B. And number 30, the writer refers to Bruce Noft's work as support for the idea that, and then 4 options. So I'm going to look for his name there, Bruce Noft, although he does appear in a couple of paragraphs. But let's look at this bit. So selfishness is a relatively recent development in human societies. So selfishness, accumulating property or possessions, is an example of being selfish, trying to get everything for yourself. Relatively recent, we've got contemporary, which means nowadays, and people who live in the same way as prehistoric humans did. Human societies, individuals in groups. Later on, we also had a bit about societies were normal until a few thousand years ago. That's relatively recent. There's more bits about being selfish and survival. That's in there. And then in the following paragraph after that, we have the end of the hunter-gatherer lifestyle and the advent of farming was connected to a psychological change that occurred in some groups of people. That's human societies again. And these negative traits, that selfishness, developed so recently, so relatively recent. So actually these 3 paragraphs have all given, pointed towards option A. And within those passages, I couldn't find anything that would support B, C, or D. So A, the correct answer for number 30. 31 to 35, again we have a summary with some missing words, and we need to choose one word only from the passage to fill in the gaps. 31. Bruce Noft's research shows that contemporary hunter-gatherer societies tend to exhibit a high level of what in all areas of life. So we might have seen this before in a previous question that we've just looked at. So go back to this one here. So contemporary hunter-gatherer societies, yep, we found that there in orange, exhibit or are characteristic by high level of extreme, and then in all areas of life we've got some examples, political and sexual. So what word from this passage could go into number 31? Well, the answer we're looking for is this one here, egalitarianism. Now, that is a very high level word, and I wouldn't expect English learners to know what this word means or possibly to have ever seen it before. So you really have to just work out from the other surrounding words that has to go in there. Just to explain, egalitarianism is the doctrine that all people are equal and deserve equal rights and opportunities. I've translated it into Chinese there, but you can obviously translate that into your own language if you want to get a better understanding of what it means. But yeah, that's just an example of some of the ridiculously high level vocabulary that IELTS reading includes. Moving on to the next part. So for number 32, these societies also employ strategies to prevent differences in what occurring. Okay, so in the same section, strategies matches up with methods. Disparities could be differences. And then prevent something occurring, ensuring don't arise. So if we look at these, which word goes in that space? It's going to be status. Differences in status. Okay, hopefully that was a little bit more straightforward. For example, the Kung follow a custom whereby the credit for one person's success at what is given to another member of the group. Okay, so look for this section about the Kung people. And one person's success at what? So good at doing something. Credits could be called acclaim, and the success is described as killing an animal because they're going hunting. So another member of the group, not the person who fired the arrow, but the person the arrow belongs to. So what are they successful at? It is hunting. That's the answer that goes in 33. And for 34, individuals who behave in a something manner are punished by being excluded. Excluded means they are not included. And other words for that, ostracize or exiling. Alright, so the answer there, we're looking for a kind of manner or a sort of behaviour, and that answer would be domineering. Domineering is where you take control a little bit too much. Dominate. Okay, and then the last one, women have a considerable amount of what in choices regarding work and marriage. So we're going to do for work and marriage, we have decide what work they do, and there's a mention of marriage, and they have custody rights over their children. So that's also related to this. And we see women there marked in pink. So what do they have? An amount of what? It's going to be one word here. Remember, one word only. Considerable amount of could match up with high level of, which then points to autonomy. And that is the correct answer for 35. Autonomy means the ability to do something by yourself. Okay, so just to go over those answers, 31, egalitarianism, 32, status, 33, hunting, 34, domineering, and 35, autonomy. And into the last part, questions 36 to 40. These are yes, no, not given questions. So here we have some statements and we need to decide if they agree with the writer's views. So it's very similar to true, false, not given, but it's more about agreeing with the writer's opinion. Make sure you do not write true or false for these ones, because the answer must be yes, no, or not given. Yes if it agrees, no if it disagrees, not given if we don't know what the writer thinks. Number 36. Some anthropologists are mistaken about the point when the number of societies such as the Kung began to decline. So if we look at this section, we've got some anthropologists, many anthropologists, and Kung began to decline. Kung were normal until a few thousand years ago. But in green I've highlighted the word believe. So the passage talks about what they believe. The question says that they are mistaken. Now, the writer doesn't actually say if he agrees with their belief or not. It doesn't say if they think what they've said is correct or if what they've said is mistaken. So the answer, not given. We don't know if the writer agrees with that statement. 37. Humans who developed warlike traits in prehistory would have had an advantage over those who did not. Warlike traits, we've got traits in warfare, mentioning that, had an advantage, should have been selected by evolution. So if you're selected by evolution, that would show some sort of genetic advantage. But this bit, just before that, there seems little reason to assume. So that means we shouldn't think that. The answer here is no, it does not agree with the views of the writer. In fact, he thinks that we shouldn't think that. 38. Being peaceful and cooperative is a natural way for people to behave. Well, over here we've got cooperation and peacefulness, so we know we're in the right place. Natural, we've got innate characteristics, and it also says that we're prevalent in human life for tens of thousands of years. This one then is going to be yes. This does agree with the writer's view. Okay, so this is all about understanding the phrase innate characteristics. Innate means something you are born with, or in other words, natural. Then 39, negative traits are more apparent in some modern cultures than in others. All right, this was a difficult one to find. So if we look at negative traits, there they are, modern cultures, modern humans. But if we look at this, more apparent in some cultures than in others. Now it talks about primates and more violent and hierarchical, but that's not a modern culture, that's not a human society. So this part isn't really about what we've said. So I might look a little bit further down onto the next paragraph. Again, we're looking for something more than others. So we've got the same thing. We've got some groups of people. We've got societies, patriarchy and warfare. Here are some cultures. But there's no comparison. It's not saying how it's more apparent in some than in others. So it does say that the primate societies are more apparent, but the human society is not given. I do think this is a difficult question, number 39. But in general, if you can't find the answer in a couple of minutes, go with not given, because there's a good chance that you can't find it because it's not there. And the final question, number 40, animal research has failed to reveal a link between changes in the environment and the emergence of aggressive tendencies. So let's go back to this paragraph. We had some animals before. So we had primates such as apes and gorillas. These are the animal examples. And research, the word research is there. Changes in the environment. The passage mentions the environmental factors and natural habitats. Okay. And are disrupted. Sorry, that's also important there. That's the change to the habitats. Then emergence of, they tend to become aggressive tendencies, more violent and hierarchical. They're in blue. So this one, not quite there yet. So reveal a link. Link is important. So are these two things linked? It has been shown repeatedly that they are linked. Okay, but watch the wording of the question. It includes the phrase failed to reveal. So that's a negative, but actually the paragraph is showing that there is a link and it has been revealed. So the answer to this one is no. That word failed is the key to the whole question here, because up until that point it looked like it was going to be yes. So watch out for negative statements there. Right, well, hopefully you got to the end of the video. Here are all of the answers. If you have been trying this yourself, you've got your own answers, you can check them now against this. there, as I mentioned, number 10, habitats with a possible S. And there we go. Right, count up how many points you got and then check that with the band score indicator. Any that you got wrong, you need to understand why you got them wrong. So don't just mark it, actually think about where you went wrong and try to understand why. Is it a case of reading the question more carefully to look for negatives? Is it about learning some more high-level vocabulary? What do you need to do to get those ones right the next time? Well, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you found it useful. Give us a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below, please. Good luck with your ongoing studies, and if you have a test coming up, then especially good luck for that. Keep studying, keep working, and best of luck. I'll see you again next time on Traveller's Guide IELTS. Goodbye for now.